Well, today, what I wanted to talk about was the difference in my mind about good science and bad science. Yesterday, we spoke about science versus public opinion. And I think very often people are pushed to publish. You've got this whole idea of publish or perish. And this enormous pressure to publish something means that there's some pretty unimportant things getting studied, if you will. And I think that in my mind, as a hardcore conservationist, as somebody who wants everything I do to lead to better conservation, to lead to more wildlife and healthier ecosystems, there's a very, very broad line between good science and bad science. So in my mind, good science is when we can learn something about an animal or an organism or a system that enables us to have the tools to better protect it. I don't care how many hairs there are in a hippopotamus, and I can't imagine why very valuable grant funding would go for somebody to be studying something like the number of hairs on a hippo's tail or whatever that is, unless they can show me how their research and their studies will lead to better conservation of a hippo. And so every step that we take for conservation as a foundation is based on exceptionally good science, is good practical science. And so the science we do is science that's going to answer questions, and those questions, the answers to those questions, are going to be the information we need to do better conservation. How much home range does a giraffe require? That's a really good question that can be answered with good science. What has been the threat that's eliminated lions in an ecosystem? That's going to require some research, it's going to require some science, and when we get that answer, it's going to dictate whether we can even translocate lions or reestablish a lion population somewhere. So making every step you do for conservation based around good, solid science is one side of that conversation. The other side of the conversation is, what is good science? And as I say, I think it can be summed up literally by good science equals science that leads to the protection or the better conservation of a system, of an organism in a system, of the entire ecosystem. And so getting back to what I always say, the definition of conservation is, it has to be conserving the entire biodiversity in an open system. Because otherwise, if you just focus your conservation efforts on one species and you're not conserving an ecosystem for that species to exist in, then you're not achieving conservation at all. So again, getting back to what I said, good science in my mind, from a conservationist perspective, is science that can teach me how to be a better conservationist and teach us how to do conservation in a better, more effective way. Bad science to a conservationist is science that's just going to tell me a fact about an animal that may or may not be in any way relevant to the protection or the conservation of that animal or the system that it requires. Anyway, that's my opinion. That's the way that I look at that. So send me a message. Tell me what you think. Drop me a comment.